Construction Business and Law Manual for Nevada, Chapter 7, Estimating and Bidding. Construction estimating is the process used to determine costs for everything that is required for completing a project. It is vital that the contractor puts into practice and follows carefully planned estimating procedures. This will ensure that the bid will be competitive with bids from other companies and also be high enough to result in a fair gross profit, but not so low that the company will lose money on the completed job. If the bid is too high, the contractor will lose business to competitors, and the company then might not have enough work for employees or subcontractors. A low bid might affect the quality of the work a contractor can afford to provide without sustaining a loss. Document review. In order to be as accurate as possible, the estimate should be based on factual information taken from reliable data. Before beginning the estimating process, the estimator should become familiar with the project bid documents. These contain the legal requirements and project specification information. Typically, bid documents include the instructions to bidders, proposal form, drawings, specifications, general conditions, supplemental conditions, and addenda. Many jurisdictions now require that contractors include a license number with bids. Jurisdictions that set monetary limits for contractors typically require that contractors include the monetary limit with bids. General conditions. The general conditions covered in the typical contract, are the most important details related to the project. These include such items as the rights and duties of participants and the rules under which they will function, the rights or limitations of the contractor to subcontract various elements of the project, the responsibility of the contractor for the subcontractor's work, the time schedule for payment, the method that will be used for payment, procedures for settling disputes, insurance and bonding requirements, and conditions that will allow for possible termination of the contract. Special conditions or supplemental conditions. If some of the general conditions need to be changed, the parties can use a standard form known as special conditions or supplemental conditions. This document enables the parties to change some of the general conditions without having to rewrite the entire contract. Addenda. Addenda are changes made to the bid documents after they have been distributed, but before bids are received. These changes can result from changes requested by either the project owner or by potential bidders. To bid or not to bid. Review of the project documents gives the contractor some insight into requirements for the project, but before the decision is made concerning whether or not to submit a bid, the contractor should realistically decide if the project would be profitable for the company. To make this decision, the contractor will need to check that the size and complexity of the project would be within the range of the company's experience and capabilities. The project would be compatible with the type of work the company typically does, and company would have available resources, funds, equipment, subcontractors, material, personnel, etc., to complete the project within the time frame noted in the documents. If these requirements could be met, then the contractor, designated estimator, would proceed with the estimating process. Estimating procedures. Forecasting accurate costs for all of a project's requirements is, at best, a time-consuming and imperfect task. The contractor should establish a system for the company in which the same procedures are followed for each estimate. Having this system in place will give the estimator more confidence that nothing in the estimate has been overlooked nor figured incorrectly. Technology is helping to increase the accuracy of the estimating process with the availability of specialized software programs for estimators to use along with standardized national and regional cost indexes. Bid documents, including drawings and project specifications, are typically organized in accordance with the industry standard CSI form. CSI format offers contractors an accepted method for organizing their estimates and their bid tabulations. The CSI format is often used for job cost coding to provide an easy and functional transition of the bid estimate to the working project budget. Estimating software is widely available for various types of construction, such as residential, commercial, industrial, remodeling, etc. Some software providers state that they can offer customizable, flexible, built-in unit cost data in industry standard CSI format. Some providers will even update regional cost data for customers on a regular basis. Even with the advanced programs, many contractors adapt the software to fit with the estimating methods that they have used in the past and with which they have experienced success. Construction Specifications Institute, CSI. The Construction Specifications Institute, CSI, is an international professional organization that provides technical information, products, and continuing education for non-residential construction. The goal of the organization is to increase communication among the Institute's members, which include engineers, architects, contractors, building owners, product manufacturers, and almost every trade associated with the construction industry. CSI develops standards for the industry's many products and services, while at the same time meeting the industry's needs for a common system of organizing and presenting construction documents. The Institute's master format is a master list of titles and numbers used to organize information by work sequences and results. It has two main groups, which include subgroups and divisions. The specification group, including general requirements and facility construction subgroups, has 19 divisions which are commonly used by general construction contractors. Figure 7.1 on the following page lists these major divisions of the CSI's master format. Figure 7.1 CSI Master Format Specification Group, General Requirements and Facility Construction Subgroups, 19 divisions. Code Division. Sections are within divisions. Section numbers are generally 6-digit provided as 3 pairs. Additional digits are available for very specific or user-defined topics. See Figure 7.2 below for an example of a CSI master format specification breakdown. There are also additional levels which provide further details about such things as types of materials, levels for grouping specifications, for working with similar natures, etc. If further information is needed, the CSI can be contacted as follows. By website, http://www.csinet.org. By mail, the Construction Specifications Institute, 99 Canal Center Plaza, Suite 300, Alexandria, Virginia, 22314. By phone, 800-689-2900. By email, csi@csinet.org. Preliminary activities. Unique features of the project site and their related costs may have a major impact on the bidding process. After checking out the site, the contractor may even decide that the difficulties connected to the location would be reason enough to not bid on the project at all. By studying the job site, the contractor will be able to obtain first-hand information about the following elements. Project location. If the site is far from the contractor's base of operations, what amount should be factored into the bid to cover the extra costs for materials, delivery, and workers' travel time? How close to the site could the material storage area be located? Future weather conditions. If the project's estimated time frame covers a period when severe weather conditions might occur, what delays might occur? Utilities access. What must be done to obtain temporary and permanent electrical, water, and telephone services? Site access. What types of roads are available? Will the contractor be responsible for constructing temporary access roads? Site security. What types of challenges will security present? What will be the cost to making the site secure? Surface features and drainage. How much work will be required to prepare the site for construction? What are the environmental restrictions? Subsurface soil and water. What lies below the surface and what problems might be caused by the subsurface conditions? Many jurisdictions have passed erosion and wetland protection guidelines. What costs should be added to the estimate to ensure compliance with all governmental regulations? If the contractor has been able to satisfactorily answer all the questions raised during the site inspection, the next step in the estimating process would be to review the company's records of previous projects. After the information has been thoroughly researched, the contractor would then be ready to proceed with actual preparation of the cost data. In order to determine the project's overall estimated cost, information would be gathered for the following specific areas: labor costs, including both company employees and subcontractors, material costs, equipment costs, project overhead costs, and company overhead costs. For additional information about job costing, refer to Chapter 6, Financial Management. Estimating methods. Estimators to calculate costs for a construction project typically use two methods. These are the detailed survey method and the unit price method. Detailed survey method, when using the detailed survey method, the first step for the estimator to do is accurately list all materials and labor needed for a project. This process is known as a quantity survey or takeoff. When the quantity survey is complete, the results are transferred to summary sheets to classify the various items of work necessary for the project, using the items of work listed on the summary sheet as a guide. The contractor will then estimate the costs for labor, materials, equipment, and overhead. Figure 7.3, detailed survey method example. A contractor is estimating and bidding a 15 by 20 room addition. The estimated cost must include labor, materials, equipment rental, permits, supervision, project overhead, and general overhead. The builder prepares a material takeoff from the project drawings and specifications, and then obtains vendor quotes for the material, including any extra charges such as sales taxes or delivery fees, and at the same time, the equipment required to do the job is listed, and the contractor obtains quotes for equipment rental. A detailed review of the required labor follows, and labor costs for each phase of the project are estimated. Then project overhead costs are added, including salaries for supervision. These estimated costs are added to the previous amount. Next, the builder must decide what amount should be applied to this project for fixed overhead costs. This estimate is often based on the contractor's projection for the year of overhead as a percentage of revenue. An accountant could be consulted to help determine overhead costs for a project. Finally, after all these costs have been added, the desired profit is calculated. The figure is added to the estimate, and the resulting sum is the price that would be bid for the job. Unit price method. The unit price method requires determining all of the costs for each unit of construction. When using this method, however, costs are based on an easily defined unit of work, such as price per square foot for decking or price per cubic yard for excavation. Figure 7.4. Unit price survey method example. A subcontractor needs to estimate a bid for excavating a rocky site for a driveway and covering it with pavers. The job requires clearing the site of an unknown quantity of material and hauling it away. Since the amount of work to be done is not easily defined in this case, the subcontractor would need to determine costs for such items as equipment rental, labor, fuel for transport, etc., and then prepare an estimate based on the cost per cubic yard, the unit of measure to excavate and remove the unknown material and cover the area with pavers. In addition to the unit cost price, the subcontractor would then add estimated project overhead costs and fixed overhead costs. With the addition of an amount for profit, the figure would become the bid price. Details of an estimate. Both of the methods described above require that all separate parts of a project be accounted for and the costs estimated accurately. An error in the estimating costs of any of the individual requirements, labor, materials, equipment, subcontracting costs, project overhead, and fixed overhead, could result in a loss for the entire project. The discussion below assumes that the contractor's employees will be used to provide the labor, materials, and equipment. If subcontractors will be used, the price quotes from subcontractors should be used for the estimates, with the contractor adding to these quotes the costs of whatever supervision the contractor will provide. Labor costs. Labor costs make up a large amount of the total cost of a project and are also one of the most difficult areas to estimate accurately. The review of the plans and specifications will enable the estimator to find out the specific areas of work that are required. The next step would be to list all the types of work to be done. This is broken down even further by determining the time, usually in man-hours, required to complete the tasks. Using job cost data from past company projects is a valuable resource to use when making this calculation. Another method is to look at labor tables published in construction manuals or that come with software packages, combining information from both sources. Company experience and standardized tables will most likely provide the most accurate labor estimates. The estimator would then devise a preliminary schedule based on this information and past experience. After the preliminary schedule has been developed, in which all required tasks have been listed, it can be compared to the project completion time requested by the owner. This comparison may show that the job cannot be finished by the completion date or within the dollar amount estimated by the owner. An experienced estimator would not arbitrarily change this preliminary schedule if the time estimated for the tasks extends beyond the proposed completion time. This time difference is a clear signal that the project will most likely require more resources or an extended completion date. Under these circumstances, the estimator would meet with the owner to establish a single schedule to effect a compromise between what the owner desires and what can be done within the required time frame with the dollars available. The contractor must be familiar with the labor market for the area and the rates that craftsmen and laborers are being paid. For some projects, it is also necessary that the estimator learn whether union or federal pay scales are required. The following is a simplified example of how an estimate for one of the project specifications might be figured. Figure 7-5, labor estimate example. The plans specify a 24-foot block wall using 8 by 8 by 16 block. A mason working with a helper can build the wall in 5 hours. If the labor cost for the mason is $25 an hour and $10 an hour for the helper, what should the estimated labor cost be for this task? Mason labor's cost $125. Helper's labor cost $50. $175 estimated labor cost for building the block wall. However, there are a number of other things that must be considered before the total labor time can be finalized. The example above is simplistic in that it assumes that costs for employment taxes, benefits, and other labor add-ons have already been factored into the noted labor cost. An experienced estimator will also know how much time to add to the labor estimate to allow time for such items as tool and material setup, safety device maintenance, cleanup, breaks, weather delays, safety meetings, and possible rework. Material costs. A material takeoff means that all the materials required for the project are accounted for. Many companies have created their own checkoff lists to use for this task. Others use standardized takeoff forms or software, whatever method is chosen. The contractor can also use past experience with similar projects to estimate waste or loss that normally occurs on a site. In addition to providing a list of the materials, the forms can also be used to show an overall picture of the materials. Should be grouped for specific phases of the project, require a longer lead time for delivery, can be ordered closer to time of use to eliminate stockpiling of inventory. More than one supplier should be contacted to submit bids for the required materials. Price alone may not be the only deciding factor. Established relationships with vendors are also important elements to consider before deciding on which supplier to use, along with job cost history for similar materials. Equipment costs. Each project will require the use of different types of equipment. The decision to buy or lease equipment is related not only to the project being bid on, but also to the overall makeup of the company. Equipment leasing could be a good option for obtaining equipment for short-term use. Equipment leases or rentals also enable the company to obtain many different types of equipment. Generally, using rental equipment will cost more than ownership. If cash flow is an important issue, then leasing might be the right decision. If for the purpose of the estimating process, it is easier to estimate rental costs than it is to calculate the cost for using owned equipment. In some cases, the contractor may decide to subcontract equipment needs to a company that can fulfill those needs. For additional information concerning equipment leasing versus equipment ownership, refer to Chapter 6, Financial Management. Project overhead costs, general conditions costs. Project overhead costs consist of additional costs related to the specific project, but that do not fit into any of the previously specified categories. These are often noted as tasks or activities in the general conditions section of the bid documents. Examples of these costs might include salaries for supervisors and security guards, fees for permits, barricades and other safety features, storage sheds and warehouse space, temporary utilities, and portable toilets. Company overhead costs. General or company overhead costs, also known as administrative overhead, are expenses that are not specific to any one project. These are ongoing expenses that a company must pay in order to stay in business. This outlay must be accounted for whether work is being done on a project or not. But when each project is estimated, these are costs that must be included in the overall bid. These costs can be estimated based on the historical or projected percentage of a company's overhead to revenue. It could also be beneficial to consult with an accountant to obtain professional advice about how to estimate the cost of these items. Examples of company overhead costs might include office salaries, rent, supplies, office utilities, insurance and taxes, professional services, legal and accounting, etc., company vehicle upkeep, advertising and printing, and leased office equipment. Profit markup. After all the cost estimates have been completed and added, then a percentage of that total amount is added as profit. This is a critical step because no company can remain in business for any length of time without making a profit. The contractors may adjust markup to compensate for the type of client, contingencies, or unknown factors following are some of the items that a contractor should consider before deciding on the amount of the markup. Size and type of the project, distance of the site from the company's base, problems with the site, environmental restrictions, competition bidding on the project, economic conditions of the area, and use of in-house employees or subcontractors. The sample summary sheet below illustrates how some of these costs might be accounted for. Figure 7-6, sample summary sheet. Labor, employees and subcontractors, estimated cost $20,000. Material, coded according to the CSI master format, $40,000. Equipment, company owned and rentals, $5,000. Project overhead, temporary utilities, barricades, security guards, cleanup, etc., $10,000. Company overhead, office staff, insurance, taxes, expensive, $5,000. Profit markup, calculated as a percentage of the total cost, 5% by $80,000, $4,000, totaling $84,000. Estimating checklist. Overlooking any of the details in the estimating process could result in a flawed bid and possible financial loss to the company. It is important that estimators make sure that all costs have been accounted for. By not identifying and accounting for all the items on the summary sheet, the estimator might make a serious estimating mistake that could result in a bid that is either too low or too high. It is worthwhile to double check all the information and entries for omissions and errors to ensure accuracy of the estimate. A bid that is too low could result in financial loss to the company for the project. A bid that is too high might result in the contract being awarded to another company. The following simple checklist provides a review of the important steps in the estimating process. More complex estimating forms can be obtained with computer software that are especially helpful for estimating and bidding on large complex projects. Figure 7-7, estimating checklist. It's a checklist with dates completed. Break-even bidding. A contractor may face the necessity of bidding for a job where only costs are covered and no profit is realized. This is called break-even point. This may occur when the economy has slowed and work is not readily available, or when it is necessary to bid lower to remain competitive. Obviously, this should not happen too often. By accepting work under these conditions, key employees and subcontractors continue to work for the contractor. Layoffs are avoided and subcontractor and supplier relationships are maintained. In order to avoid financial loss under these conditions, it is necessary for the contractor to understand the specific costs that relate to a break-even scenario. Specific information is covered in Chapter 6, Financial Management, in the section called Break-Even Point. Bid shopping. As you'll remember, Chapter 1 discusses how a contractor should conduct business ethically. An example of an unethical business practice is bid shopping. Bid shopping works in the following ways. A general contractor will use one subcontractor's quote to prepare a bid. After the bid is accepted, the contractor will then attempt to increase future profit by substituting a different subcontractor who has quoted the job at a lower cost. In another equally unethical scenario, the general contractor will attempt to manipulate and coerce the subcontractor into lowering the original quote under threat of being replaced. Some jurisdictions have prohibited bid shopping. The contractor's reputation will become tarnished within the business community. The unethical contractor will discover that the pool of honest, qualified craftsmen necessary for the business to prosper will choose not to work with unethical people. In the long run, the contractor who follows ethical business practices will achieve greater success because both customers and colleagues will want to be involved in projects with this individual. This not only applies to subcontractors, but if you're an employer who is unethical, well, qualified labor employees won't want to work for you, and the word will get around that if for some reason your employee is injured and you don't manage it appropriately, or if for some reason you terminated an employee for an unjust cause, like a relational issue with a different employee, or if there's any discrimination involved with supervision and you overlook it and then just get rid of the underemployee for that purpose, just so you can keep your supervision, it's unethical. There needs to be proper discipline, standards in place, and expectations of everybody need be equal. But thank you for reviewing Chapter 7 of the Construction Business and Law Manual for Nevada, Estimating and Bidding. Please look to Chapter 8 and let's learn together. Thanks.